Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his third cup of coffee when everything went wrong. The bridge of the exploration ship New Frontier hummed with its usual quiet activity. Outside the viewports, stars streaked past in the familiar light show of faster-than-light travel. It was supposed to be a routine survey mission to catalog planets in the Outer Rim territories. "Jump completion in 30 seconds, Captain," called out Lieutenant Ben Carter from the navigation station. His fingers danced across the controls with practiced ease. This was their 15th jump in 2 weeks, and the crew had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her science station, where she had been reviewing data from their last planetary scan. "I'm still getting some interesting readings from that mineral composition we found on Delta 7. The crystalline structures are unlike anything in our databases." "We'll add it to the report when we get back to Earth," Morrison replied, settling back in his captain's chair. At 42, he had been exploring space for nearly 2 decades. Nothing much surprised him anymore. Chief Engineer Amy Walsh's voice crackled through the comm system from the engine room. "Captain, I'm seeing some odd fluctuations in the jump drive. The power readings are climbing past normal parameters." Morrison frowned and sat forward. "How far past normal?" "About 15% and rising. I've never seen anything like this before. The quantum field generators are acting like they're overcharged, but all our pre-jump diagnostics showed green across the board." "Can you compensate?" Morrison asked, his voice calm despite the growing concern in his chest. "I'm trying, but the system isn't responding to manual adjustments. It's like the drive has a mind of its own." Dr. Park's console began beeping rapidly. "Captain, the stellar navigation sensors are showing impossible readings. According to this, we're not where we're supposed to be." "What do you mean?" Morrison stood and walked over to her station. "The star patterns don't match any of our charts. The gravitational signatures are all wrong. If I didn't know better, I'd say we jumped about 15,000 light-years off course." Lieutenant Carter spun around in his chair, his face pale. "That's impossible. The jump drive can't even generate that much power. Maximum range is 800 light-years. Amy's voice came through the comm again, tight with worry. "Captain, you need to see this. The jump drive just completely shut down. All the quantum coils are burned out. We're not jumping anywhere anytime soon." Morrison felt the familiar weight of command settle on his shoulders. In his experience, panic never solved anything. "Amy, how long for repairs?" "Weeks, maybe months. We need replacement parts that we don't have. This kind of damage, I've never seen anything like it." "All right, people, let's take this one step at a time," Morrison said, his voice steady. "Ben, drop us out of FTL. Lisa, start a full sensor sweep of the area. Let's figure out where we are before we worry about how to get home." The ship shuddered slightly as it dropped back into normal space. The viewports cleared, revealing an unfamiliar starfield. Dr. Park's fingers flew over her controls as she began analyzing their surroundings. "Captain," she said, her voice filled with scientific excitement rather than fear, "I'm detecting artificial structures in this system. Large ones. There's definitely intelligent life here." "How large?" Morrison asked. "The nearest structure is about 50 kilometers long. It's giving off massive energy signatures. And Captain, it's moving toward us." "Lieutenant." Carter looked up from his communications array. "Sir, I'm receiving transmissions. They're not in any language our computers recognize, but the signal structure suggests intelligence. Someone's trying to talk to us." Morrison nodded thoughtfully. First contact protocols were clear, even if they had never been used in a real situation. "Open a channel, Ben. Standard peaceful greeting." "Channel open, sir." Morrison cleared his throat. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Frontier. We come in peace and mean no harm. We appear to have suffered a navigation malfunction and would appreciate assistance." Dr. Park suddenly looked up from her science station, her eyes wide. "Captain, you need to see this." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the space ahead of them. What they saw made the entire bridge fall silent. A massive ship, larger than anything humanity had ever built, hung in space before them. Its hull was a dark metallic gray, covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Smaller ships swarmed around it like insects around a hive. That's not the biggest one, Dr. Park said quietly. I'm detecting at least 12 similar vessels in the immediate area, with hundreds of smaller craft. Amy's voice came through the comm, surprisingly calm. Well, this is interesting. Those ships are using some kind of exotic matter containment for their power source. The energy output is incredible. Whoever built these really knew what they were doing. Morrison couldn't help but smile slightly at Amy's engineer's enthusiasm, even in the face of what was clearly a massive alien military force. Any response? To our transmission, Ben? Yes, sir, I'm getting a reply now. The translation software is working on it. Got it. They're demanding we identify ourselves and explain our presence in what they call Imperial space. They want to know which faction we represent. Imperial space? Morrison rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Sounds like we've stumbled into someone's territory. Send another message. Tell them we're explorers from Earth, and we're here due to a technical malfunction. Explain that we have no hostile intentions, and would welcome the opportunity for peaceful contact. Dr. Park was still staring at the alien ships with fascination. Captain, the technology I'm seeing here is remarkable. Their hull composition appears to be some kind of adaptive metal alloy, and those weapon systems, the physics involved, must be extraordinary. Focus, Lisa, Morrison said gently. What can you tell me about the beings operating these ships? Preliminary biosensor readings suggest carbon-based life forms, roughly humanoid in structure. Slightly larger than humans on average. I'm not detecting any immediate signs of aggression from a biological standpoint, but their ships are definitely built for war. Lieutenant Carter looked up from his station. Sir, they're responding again. They want us to prepare to be boarded. For inspection. They're asking if we require medical assistance because our crew appears to be suffering from some kind of shock-induced paralysis. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Shock-induced paralysis? That's what the translation says, sir. Apparently they expected us to be showing more signs of panic or distress. Amy's voice came through the comm with a hint of amusement. Maybe they've never met humans before. We don't exactly follow their playbook for how to react to overwhelming odds. Morrison couldn't help but chuckle. No, I suppose we don't. Ben, tell them we're functioning normally and that we'd be happy to meet with their representatives. Standard diplomatic protocols. As the massive alien fleet began to move into formation around their small ship, Morrison settled back into his captain's chair. Whatever happened next, they would face it the way humans always did, with calm determination and a healthy dose of curiosity about what they might learn. General Korax of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet had commanded warships for over 30 years. He had seen species beg for mercy, flee in terror, or attack with desperate fury when faced with the might of the Empire. He had never seen anything like the humans. The alien vessel that had appeared in Imperial space was small and unremarkable. Its technology seemed primitive compared to Zephyrian standards. Yet the beings aboard it showed no fear whatsoever. When his massive dreadnought had moved to intercept them, they had simply observed. No panic communications, no attempt to flee, no desperate weapons charging. Just calm, methodical scanning. Sir, his communications officer reported, the aliens are requesting permission to contact their homeworld to inform them of first contact procedures. Korax felt his blood chill. They wanted to call for reinforcements. While surrounded by 12 Imperial dreadnoughts and hundreds of fighter craft, they were calmly planning to bring in their fleet. What kind of military power did these humans possess that they showed such confidence? Aboard the New Frontier, Captain Morrison was reviewing first contact protocols on his tablet. The situation was unprecedented, but Starfleet training had covered the basics. Establish peaceful intentions, gather information, and maintain diplomatic composure. Ben, have you managed to establish a stable translation matrix with their language? Morrison asked. Lieutenant Carter nodded. Yes, sir. Their syntax is complex, but the universal translator is adapting quickly. They seem to use a lot of military terminology even in what appears to be casual conversation. Dr. Park looked up from her science station, her eyes bright with excitement. Captain, I'm learning so much from passive scans. Their biology is fascinating. They appear to be descended from predatory pack hunters, which explains their hierarchical social structure. And their technology uses quantum field manipulation in ways we've only theorized about. Amy's voice came through the comm from engineering. Lisa, you should see their power distribution systems. They're using some kind of controlled antimatter reaction, but the containment method is incredibly inefficient. I can think of at least 6 ways to improve their energy output by 200%. Morrison couldn't help but smile at his crew's enthusiasm. Even stranded 15,000 light-years from home and surrounded by alien warships, they were treating this like an exciting research opportunity. Sir, Lieutenant Carter said, we're receiving another transmission. They want us to prepare for boarding by their inspection teams. They're asking, this is odd. They're asking if our crew requires psychological counseling for trauma-induced emotional shutdown. Emotional shutdown? Morrison raised an eyebrow. Dr. Park looked up from her console. I think I understand. Based on what I'm reading about their stress responses, Zephyrians likely show extreme emotional reactions to threatening situations. Our calm behavior probably seems unnatural to them. Should I explain that we're just following standard procedures? Carter asked. Go ahead, Morrison replied. Tell them we appreciate their concern, but we're functioning normally. This is how humans typically respond to new situations. On the Zephyrian flagship, General Corax listened to the translation with growing unease. The humans claimed this was normal behavior for their species. A race that remained completely calm when facing annihilation was either supremely confident in their ability to destroy their enemies, or they were psychologically incapable of feeling fear. General, his tactical officer reported, their ship is continuing passive scans of our fleet. They're analyzing our weapon systems, shield frequencies, and power signatures. Gathering intelligence for an attack? Corax asked. It's possible, sir. Though their scanning methods are very sophisticated, they're learning more about our capabilities in minutes than most enemies discover in months of combat. Corax's mandibles clicked nervously. These humans were either the most confident military strategists he had ever encountered, or they were completely insane. Dr. Park was having the time of her life. The alien technology she was observing represented decades of research possibilities. Their biorhythms indicated a species evolved for quick, emotional responses to threats. Their social structure appeared to be based on dominance hierarchies. Their technology, while advanced in some areas, showed clear room for improvement. Amy, she called over the comm, are you seeing the structural inefficiencies in their hull design? The way they've distributed structural supports creates at least 14 weak points that could be exploited. I see them, Amy replied cheerfully. Their armor plating is thick but poorly angled. A well-placed impact could cause cascading failures throughout their defensive grid. Interesting engineering choices. Captain Morrison was reviewing the diplomatic database when Carter spoke up. Sir, they're asking about our military hierarchy and command structure. They want to know who we report to and what our fleet strength is. Tell them we're an exploration vessel under the command of Earth's Starfleet. We have a small defensive fleet for protection, but our primary mission is scientific research and peaceful contact with other species. Morrison's honest answer sent waves of confusion through the Zephyrian command structure. A small defensive fleet? These beings who showed no fear in the face of Imperial might claim to have only minimal military forces. It had to be a lie, or perhaps a deliberate understatement designed to lull the Empire into complacency. General, the communications officer reported, they're sharing technical specifications about their faster-than-light drive system. They say it malfunctioned and brought them here accidentally. Corax examined the data. The drive technology was primitive by Imperial standards, incapable of the kind of precision jump that would be needed for a military strike. Yet if these humans had traveled 15,000 light-years by accident, what kind of range did their military vessels possess? Dr. Park was documenting everything she observed about Zephyrian culture. Their art, visible on their ship's internal displays, showed themes of conquest and dominance. Their communications included frequent references to honor, strength, and military achievement. They were clearly a warrior culture, which made their fear of human composure even more interesting. Captain, she said, I think they're afraid of us. Morrison looked surprised. Afraid? They have enough firepower to glass a planet and we're one small ship. That's exactly why they're afraid, Dr. Park explained. From their perspective, we should be terrified. The fact that we're not suggests to them that we have hidden capabilities or backup plans they can't see. Amy's voice came through the comm. You know what's really funny? Their weapon systems are impressive, but the targeting algorithms are at least 50 years behind what we use. I bet a single Earth frigate could outmaneuver their entire fighter wing. Morrison shook his head in amazement. His crew was treating a potential first contact disaster like an academic exercise. But that was exactly what made them good at their jobs. Humans had always responded to the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. Ben, prepare a cultural exchange package, Morrison ordered. Include information about human history, art, and science. If they want to understand us, we might as well give them something to work with. As the transmission was sent to the Zephyrian fleet, General Corax felt his confidence crumble further. The humans were sharing their cultural data freely, as if they had nothing to hide. Either they were the most trusting species in the galaxy, or they were so powerful that they didn't consider the Zephyrian Empire a threat worth concealing information from. Looking at the small human ship surrounded by his massive fleet, Corax made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He sent an urgent message to the Imperial Council. Have encountered unknown species of unprecedented military confidence. Recommend extreme caution. These humans may represent the most dangerous threat the Empire has ever faced. The Imperial Council chamber on the Zephyrian homeworld was a massive hall carved from black stone. 12 high generals sat around a circular table, their scaled faces grim as they reviewed General Corax's report. The holographic display at the center showed the small human ship surrounded by the Imperial fleet. 30 years of service, High General Thane said, his voice echoing in the chamber. Corax has never shown fear of any enemy. If he says these humans are dangerous, we must take it seriously. High General Vex leaned forward, studying the tactical data. Their ship shows no weapon signatures that match our databases. Their technology appears primitive. Yet Corax reports they show no fear whatsoever when faced with overwhelming force. Perhaps they are simply too primitive to understand the danger they are in, suggested High General Zarek. No, Thane replied grimly. Corax tested that theory. He had his weapon systems target their ship directly. Their biosigns remained completely stable. No increase in heart rate, no stress hormones, nothing. They either have incredible mental discipline, or they know something we don't. Meanwhile, aboard the New Frontier, Dr. Park was having the best day of her career. She had cataloged 17 different aspects of Zephyrian culture, analyzed their social hierarchy, and documented their technological capabilities. The aliens had even begun sharing basic information about their empire, apparently trying to impress or intimidate their human visitors. This is remarkable, she said to Captain Morrison. They've controlled this region of space for over 2,000 years. They've conquered or absorbed hundreds of different species. Their military machine is incredibly sophisticated. Any indication of how they treat defeated enemies? Morrison asked. From what I can gather, they offer species two choices: join the Empire as subordinate members, or face complete destruction. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground. Amy's voice came through the comm, cheerful as always. Captain, I've been analyzing their fleet formations. They're using a defensive pattern called absolute dominance positioning. Basically, they arrange their ships to create overlapping fields of fire that can destroy anything in the center zone. It's actually pretty clever, though I can see some weaknesses in their approach. Morrison rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Weaknesses? Well, their formation assumes the enemy will try to fight or flee. If someone just sat still and didn't react like we're doing, the formation becomes less effective. They're positioned to respond to action, not inaction. Lieutenant Carter looked up from his communications station. Sir, we're receiving a priority. Transmission from Earth. Admiral Scott is responding to our first contact report. Put him through, Morrison ordered. Admiral Ryan Scott's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Morrison could see the bustling activity of Earth's Starfleet Command. Jake, I've read your report. First contact with a galactic empire 15,000 light-years from home. How are you holding up? We're doing fine, sir, Morrison replied. The aliens seem cautious but not hostile. We're conducting standard diplomatic exchanges and gathering cultural information. Scott nodded approvingly. Good work. I'm assembling a proper first contact team. Linguists, cultural specialists, diplomats. We should have a small fleet ready to join you within the week. A fleet, sir? Morrison asked. Nothing aggressive, Scott assured him. Just proper diplomatic vessels with the right personnel for this kind of situation. We want to make a good impression. On the Zephyrian flagship, the translation of this conversation sent General Corax into a state of near panic. The humans were calling for reinforcements. A human fleet was coming to their location, and the human captain had described his current situation as doing fine, while surrounded by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Send immediate word to the Council, Corax ordered. The humans are bringing military support. Their leader shows no concern about our presence, which suggests they have capabilities we cannot detect. Dr. Park continued her analysis of Zephyrian culture, asking detailed questions about their social structure, military organization, and technological development. To her, it was standard xenoanthropological research. To the Zephyrians, it looked like intelligence gathering for an invasion. Their society is built around military achievement, she explained to Morrison. Social status is determined by combat success and territorial conquest. They literally cannot understand a species that doesn't respond to shows of force. So our calm reaction is completely outside their frame of reference, Morrison mused. Exactly. To them, we either have to be supremely confident in our military superiority or we're some kind of predator species that doesn't show fear because we don't feel it. Amy had been studying the Zephyrian power systems and couldn't contain her engineering enthusiasm. Captain, their energy efficiency is terrible. They're losing about 40% of their power output to heat dispersion. A few simple modifications to their containment fields could double their available energy. That's interesting, Amy, but probably not something we should mention right now, Morrison said diplomatically. Oh, I already did, Amy replied cheerfully. I sent some preliminary improvement suggestions to their engineering staff. Professional courtesy. Morrison felt a brief moment of panic quickly suppressed. You did what? I shared some basic efficiency improvements. Nothing classified, just standard engineering principles. Their chief engineer seemed really interested. On the Zephyrian flagship, Chief Engineer Grex stared at the human technical data in disbelief. The modifications suggested by the human engineer would indeed double their power output. The calculations were simple, elegant, and absolutely correct. How had his people missed such obvious improvements for centuries? More disturbing was the casual way the information had been shared. The human engineer had treated revolutionary advances in Zephyrian technology like helpful suggestions for a neighbor's broken machinery. What kind of technological superiority did humans possess that they could casually improve Imperial engineering? General, Corax reviewed the engineering report with growing dread. They can improve our most advanced systems without effort. This confirms our worst fears about their capabilities. The Imperial Council received hourly updates about the human situation. Each report made them more nervous. The humans were gathering detailed intelligence about Imperial military capabilities. They were calling for reinforcements. They showed complete psychological immunity to intimidation, and now they were demonstrating casual technological superiority. We must assume the worst, High General Thane announced to the Council. These humans may represent a threat greater than anything we have faced in our history. Their behavior suggests either incredible military confidence or complete psychological detachment from normal survival instincts. What do we know about their homeworld? Asked High General Vex. According to their star charts, it's located in a region we've never explored. If they've been developing in isolation for millennia, they could have technologies we can't imagine. High. General Zarek studied the tactical displays. Recommend we mobilize additional fleets. If their reinforcements arrive, we should be prepared for anything. Back on the new frontier, Morrison was reviewing the day's diplomatic exchanges. The Zephyrians seemed increasingly agitated, though he couldn't understand why. His crew was following standard first contact protocols, sharing cultural information, asking questions about their society, and maintaining peaceful intentions. "Captain," Lieutenant Carter said, "the Zephyrians are asking about our military doctrine and combat capabilities. They seem particularly interested in how humans respond to threatening situations." "Tell them that humans prefer diplomatic solutions to conflicts," Morrison replied. "We generally try to understand our opponents rather than simply fighting them." This response, translated and transmitted to the Zephyrian fleet, caused another wave of fear through their command structure. Humans preferred to understand their opponents. This sounded like psychological warfare taken to an extreme level. A species that studied their enemies with scientific detachment before destroying them was the stuff of nightmares. As night cycle began aboard the human ship, Dr. Park compiled her research notes. She had enough material for several academic papers on Zephyrian culture. Captain Morrison reviewed the ship's status reports. Lieutenant Carter organized the communications logs. Amy continued her analysis of alien engineering. To them, it had been a successful day of first contact. They had established communication, gathered valuable scientific data, and maintained peaceful relations with a powerful alien civilization. 2. The Zephyrian Empire. It had been a day of mounting terror as they faced what appeared to be the most dangerous species in galactic history. Admiral Scott's diplomatic fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly where the new frontier had transmitted their coordinates. 5 ships materialized in formation, 2 science vessels, a communications ship, a diplomatic transport, and a single escort frigate. To human eyes, it was a modest, peaceful mission. To Zephyrian sensors, it was the arrival of an unknown military force with technologies they couldn't fully understand. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Scott's voice came through the comm. "Permission to come aboard for a proper briefing." "Granted, sir," Morrison replied. "Bay 2 is ready for your shuttle." General Corax watched the human fleet's arrival with growing anxiety. Their ships were small compared to Imperial dreadnoughts, but they moved with precision that suggested advanced maneuvering systems. More concerning was their formation. They had positioned themselves in a pattern that looked random but actually created perfect defensive coverage for their damaged vessel. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human formation appears casual, but it creates overlapping fields of protection that would be difficult to penetrate. Either they're naturally gifted strategists or this is deliberate military positioning disguised as peaceful arrangement." Dr. Park was practically vibrating with excitement as she prepared to meet the diplomatic team. Real xenoanthropologists, linguists, and cultural specialists would be able to help her analyze Zephyrian society properly. She had so many questions about their social hierarchy and military culture. Admiral Scott arrived with a small team including Ambassador Helen Gray, the first human to hold the title of Galactic Relations Specialist. Gray was a former anthropologist who had trained for first contact scenarios that everyone hoped would never actually happen. "Report, Captain," Scott said as he settled into the briefing room. Morrison outlined the situation, the accidental arrival, the first contact with the Zephyrian Empire, and the ongoing diplomatic exchanges. "They seem nervous about our presence, but they've been sharing information freely. Dr. Park has compiled extensive cultural data." Ambassador Gray reviewed Park's notes with professional interest. "Fascinating. A militaristic empire that's controlled this region for millennia. Their fear response to your calm behavior suggests a culture built around intimidation and dominance displays. The interesting thing," Dr. Park added, "is that they keep asking about our military capabilities and strategic thinking. They seem to expect us to be more aggressive or fearful." Amy joined the briefing via comm from engineering. "I've been analyzing their technology. It's advanced but inefficient. Their weapons are powerful but poorly designed. Their ships are heavily armored but structurally unsound in key areas. Honestly, a single Earth frigate could probably outmaneuver their entire fighter wing." Scott raised an eyebrow. "That's quite a claim, Amy." "I'm not exaggerating, sir. Their technology is brute force engineering. Lots of power, minimal efficiency. They compensate for poor design with overwhelming firepower. It works, but it's wasteful." Ambassador Gray was studying the translations of Zephyrian communications. They're interpreting your behavior as either supreme military confidence or psychological abnormality. In their culture, showing no fear means either having superior force or being mentally incapable of normal emotional responses. So they think we're either incredibly powerful or completely insane, Morrison summarized. Basically, yes. And from their perspective, both options are terrifying. On the Zephyrian flagship, the analysis of human fleet capabilities had reached disturbing conclusions. The human ships used energy signatures that Imperial sensors couldn't fully analyze. Their hull compositions included materials that Zephyrian databases didn't recognize. Most concerning, their tactical formation suggested military thinking that was both sophisticated and completely alien to Imperial doctrine. General, the intelligence officer reported, "We've detected energy readings from the human vessels that suggest weapons systems we cannot identify. They're not targeting us, but the power signatures are unusual." Korax felt his stress levels climbing. Unusual how? The energy patterns don't match any known weapon types. They could be completely new technologies, or they could be systems so advanced that our sensors can't properly analyze them. What the Zephyrians were detecting were actually the experimental quantum sensors that Dr. Park was using to study their culture. The advanced scientific instruments were beyond anything in Imperial technology, designed for detailed analysis of alien societies and technologies. Commander Kate Hudson, the tactical officer from Admiral Scott's frigate, was running routine, defensive calculations when she noticed something interesting about the Zephyrian fleet formation. "Admiral, their positioning creates some interesting strategic possibilities." "Oh?" Scott looked up from his diplomatic reports. "If someone wanted to disable their formation without causing casualties, you could target specific power coupling, points on their lead ships, create a cascade failure that would force them to break formation without actually damaging the vessels." Hudson was treating the situation like an academic exercise, the kind of tactical puzzle that officers studied. At the academy, she had no idea that her casual analysis was being monitored by Zephyrian intelligence. "The humans are analyzing our fleet vulnerabilities," the intelligence officer reported to General Korax. "They've identified our formation weaknesses with incredible precision." "How long did it take them?" Korax asked grimly. "Approximately 6 minutes, sir." Korax felt his confidence collapse completely. Human tactical analysis had identified critical fleet vulnerabilities in minutes that Imperial strategists had never even considered. These beings were military geniuses, operating on a level that the Empire couldn't match. Dr. Park was having a wonderful conversation with Ambassador Gray about Zephyrian psychology. Their entire social structure is based on dominance hierarchies maintained through displays of force. They literally cannot understand a species that doesn't respond to intimidation. Which explains why our calm behavior terrifies them, Gray noted. "We're violating every rule of their psychological framework." Amy's voice came through the comm with barely contained excitement. "Ambassador, you should see their power distribution networks. I could redesign their entire energy grid to triple their efficiency. It's like they built everything backwards." Gray smiled at the engineer's enthusiasm. "That's very impressive, Amy, but maybe we should focus on understanding them before we start redesigning their technology." "Oh, I already sent them some suggestions," Amy replied cheerfully. "Their engineers were asking questions about human technology, so I shared some basic improvement concepts. Nothing classified, just standard efficiency principles." Morrison felt that familiar moment of panic again. "Amy, what exactly did you share?" "Just some ideas for optimizing their antimatter containment systems. Simple stuff. Better magnetic field geometry, improved power flow algorithms, more efficient cooling systems, the kind of things any first-year engineering student would suggest." The Zephyrian flagship, Chief Engineer Grex was staring at the latest human technical data in absolute shock. The suggested improvements to their power systems were revolutionary. The humans had casually redesigned fundamental aspects of Imperial technology as if they were fixing a broken toy. "General," Grex reported to Korax, "the human modifications would increase our weapons power by 300%. Their antimatter containment improvements would make our ships virtually indestructible. This is technology centuries ahead of our capabilities. And they shared it freely? Korax asked. They called it basic efficiency principles. They treated revolutionary advances in imperial engineering like helpful suggestions for amateur mechanics. The implications were staggering. If humans considered such advanced technology to be basic knowledge, what did their actual military systems look like? What level of technological superiority did they possess that they could casually improve imperial engineering without effort? General Korax sent an urgent message to the Imperial Council. Human capabilities far exceed initial estimates. They demonstrate casual technological superiority and strategic analysis abilities that suggest military advancement beyond our comprehension. Recommend immediate mobilization of all available fleets. As day cycle ended aboard the human vessels, the diplomatic team continued their cultural exchanges with growing enthusiasm. They had established friendly relations with a galactic empire, gathered valuable scientific data, and opened communication channels that could benefit both species for generations. Meanwhile, throughout Zephyrian space, emergency mobilization orders were being transmitted. The Empire was preparing for what they believed could be the greatest military threat in their history. A species of cold-blooded strategic geniuses who showed no fear, analyzed enemy weaknesses with terrifying efficiency, and possessed technology so advanced they could revolutionize imperial engineering as a casual gesture of friendship. The greatest irony was that both species were absolutely correct in their assessments. The humans were indeed exactly as calm, analytical, and technologically innovative as they appeared. The Zephyrians were right to be amazed by human capabilities. They were just completely wrong about what those capabilities meant. The emergency session of the Imperial Council had been running for 12 hours. Around the Great Table, the 12 high generals looked exhausted and worried. Holographic displays showed fleet positions throughout the Empire as ships moved toward the human contact zone. The situation has escalated beyond our worst projections, High General Thane announced. Intelligence reports suggest the humans possess technological capabilities that could revolutionize warfare itself. High General Vex gestured to the technical displays. Their casual improvements to our engineering represent advances we couldn't achieve in centuries. If this is basic knowledge for them, their actual military technology must be beyond our comprehension. There's something else, High General Zarek said grimly. Our long-range sensors have detected movement in hegemony space. They appear to be mobilizing their own fleets. The hegemony was the Empire's ancient enemy, a collection of machine intelligences that had been fighting the Zephyrians for over 500 years. The war had reached a stalemate, with neither side able to gain decisive advantage. They must have detected the human arrival as well, Thane realized. If they perceive the humans as a potential threat or ally to us, they'll want to act first. On the diplomatic vessel Aurora, Ambassador Gray was reviewing the latest intelligence reports from Earth when Captain Morrison contacted her. Ambassador, the Zephyrians are requesting a formal meeting. They want to discuss what they're calling mutual strategic interests. That's a significant shift in tone, Gray noted. They've gone from cautious contact to strategic discussions in just a few days. Dr. Park's voice came through the comm from the New Frontier. Ambassador, I think I understand what's happening. The Zephyrians have been at war with something called the hegemony for centuries. They might be considering us as potential allies. Admiral Scott joined the conversation from his flagship. That could explain their nervousness about our capabilities. They're not just assessing us as a new contact, they're evaluating us as a potential military asset. The formal meeting took place in the main conference room of the Zephyrian flagship. General Korax had assembled his senior staff, while the humans were represented by Ambassador Gray, Admiral Scott, Captain Morrison, and Dr. Park. Korax began with what he hoped was diplomatic courtesy. We welcome you to our space, humans of Earth. Your arrival has been enlightening. Thank you, General, Ambassador Gray replied. We're honored to make contact with your civilization. We understand you are explorers, Korax continued carefully, but we must ask, do you have experience with military conflicts? Admiral Scott exchanged glances with his team. We have some experience with defensive operations, but we generally prefer diplomatic solutions to conflicts. Dr. Park, ever curious about alien cultures, couldn't help asking, "Are you currently facing a military threat, General?" Corax's expression darkened. "For 5 centuries, we have been at war with the hegemony, machine intelligences that seek to convert or destroy all organic life. The conflict has reached a stalemate, but recent intelligence suggests they may be planning a major offensive." "Machine intelligences," Morrison mused. "That presents unique challenges." "Indeed," Corax agreed. "They do not respond to traditional military tactics. They show no fear, no hesitation, no emotional reactions that can be exploited." Amy's voice came through the comm from her ship. "Sounds like a classic AI problem. You need to target their decision-making algorithms rather than trying to intimidate them." There was a moment of stunned silence in the conference room. The human engineer had casually described a strategic approach that Zephyrian military theorists had been struggling with for centuries. "Could you elaborate on that concept?" Corax asked carefully. "Sure," Amy replied cheerfully. "Artificial intelligences make decisions based on programmed parameters and learned responses. If you can force them into situations outside their programming, or feed them contradictory data, you can disrupt their effectiveness. It's basic system theory." General Corax felt a spark of hope for the first time in decades. Would your people be willing to share such knowledge with the Empire?" Ambassador Gray considered the request. "We'd be happy to assist with defensive strategies against aggressive machine intelligences. That sounds like something that benefits everyone." Commander Hudson was studying the tactical data the Zephyrians had shared about the hegemony. "Admiral, their formations are actually quite predictable. Machine intelligences tend to optimize for efficiency, which makes them vulnerable to irregular tactics." "What kind of irregular tactics?" Corax asked. "Well," Hudson said, treating it like an academic discussion, "you could use false retreats to draw them into kill zones, deploy decoy formations to waste their resources, or use rapid redeployment to attack their supply lines. The key is doing things that don't follow standard military logic." Dr. Park was fascinated by the hegemony data from an anthropological perspective. "Their decision trees seem very rigid. They've optimized for combat against your traditional tactics, but they might not adapt well to completely different approaches." "The interesting thing," Amy added, "is that their technology is impressive, but inflexible. If you could force them to operate outside their programmed parameters, they'd probably make increasingly poor decisions." General Corax listened to this casual dismantling of 5 centuries of military stalemate with growing amazement. The humans were discussing revolutionary strategic concepts as if they were solving simple puzzles. "General," Ambassador Gray said, diplomatically, "if your people would be interested, we could arrange for some of our strategic specialists to review the situation and offer suggestions." Corax felt tears forming in his eyes, something that would have been impossible an hour earlier. "You would do this, even though you barely know us?" Morrison smiled. "It's what we do, General. When we encounter problems, we try to solve them. Especially when those problems threaten innocent people." The conversation continued for hours as human specialists casually revolutionized Zephyrian military thinking. Commander Hudson described flanking maneuvers that could break hegemony formations. Amy suggested technological modifications that could disrupt machine decision-making. Dr. Park analyzed hegemony psychology and found predictable patterns in their behavior. To the humans, it was an interesting intellectual exercise. To the Zephyrians, it was the first hope they'd had in centuries. "There is one more thing," General Corax said as the meeting concluded. "The hegemony has been monitoring our communications. They know about your arrival. Intelligence suggests they're preparing a major assault, possibly to prevent an alliance between our peoples." Admiral Scott frowned. "How major?" "Their entire fleet. Over 3,000 vessels. They appear to be planning the largest offensive in the history of our conflict." Morrison looked at his team. "Well, that settles it. We can't let machine intelligences destroy an entire civilization while we just watch." Ambassador Gray nodded. "I'll need to contact Earth for authorization, but I think we can provide assistance." Amy's voice came through the comm with enthusiasm. This is going to be interesting. I've got some ideas about disrupting their command networks. As the meeting ended, General Corax sent a message to the Imperial Council. The humans have agreed to assist us against the hegemony. Their strategic insights exceed our highest expectations. For the first time in centuries, we have reason for hope. On Earth, the emergency session of the unified government received Ambassador Gray's report. With mixed feelings, humanity was about to enter its first galactic war, fighting alongside an alien empire against machine intelligences that threatened organic life throughout the region. It's not exactly how we planned first contact, President Martinez noted, but it seems we're committed to helping our new allies. Admiral Chen, head of Starfleet Operations, was already analyzing the tactical situation. We can have a task force ready within days. Nothing huge, a few cruisers, some frigates, and support vessels. Our advantage will be strategic thinking, not raw firepower. Back in Zephyrian space, the human fleet was already making preparations. What had started as an accidental first contact was becoming humanity's introduction to galactic politics. They were about to discover that sometimes the best way to make friends was to help them solve their problems, even if those problems involved the largest space battle in galactic history. The Zephyrians still didn't understand that human composure wasn't strategic intimidation. It was just how humans faced challenges. But they were beginning to realize that having humans as allies was the best thing that had happened to the Empire in 500 years.